Welcome to the Friends of Fantasy Benefits Baseball Podcast. I'm Justin Mason, lead fantasy writer and analyst, friendsfantasybenefits.com. Joining me on this episode is my good friend, Doug Dennis of Baseball HQ. Doug, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Love being here.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Doug. For those who may not know you and know your work, want to remind everybody where you can reach on social media and then plug what you do.
Yeah, so I'm just on Twitter at DougDennis41. I work for Baseball HQ. I've been the bullpen writer there for almost 25 years now, which is crazy. We actually get going. I think I just submitted a column, my first column of the year, a couple days ago. So we're already getting geared up.
Yep, you guys do great work over at Baseball HQ, and you're like one of my go-to guys for bullpen stuff. Always love what you do in season, and then also at Arizona Fall League, where we have the pleasure to hang out usually every year as long as it's happening. So if you've never been to Arizona Fall League, gotta come. It is an absolute blast. Baseball HQ puts on a fantastic event.
Yeah, I've been going to that for 25 years. It's different than it used to be. I think the first time we went, there were about 25 people and like 20 of us were speakers. So that was different now.
Yes, it is much different. I think we were close to 200 this year, which I think even with COVID still kind of floating around is a pretty impressive number. So my guess is it'll expand even further next season. So definitely make sure to come on out for Arizona Fall League next year, and go follow Doug on Twitter and follow his work over at Baseball HQ. You can reach me at Justin Mason FWFB. Please give us a 5-star review. If you've been listening to the last few episodes, you'll be hearing me talk about how we're going to give away a free RotoWare shirt for every month until the start of the season based off of a 5-star review. So give us a 5-star review. We'll randomly pick one of those 5-star reviews at the end of every month and give away a free RotoWare shirt. So with that, let's jump into your favorite teams. And you are dressed for the occasion, decked out in Cincinnati Reds gear.
I was told be ready for the Reds, so I got ready. Got my seat and everything. Got my popcorn. I'm ready to go.
There we go. And let's start behind the plate with Tyler Stephenson. Stephenson was one of those guys that I think was a really, really kind of trendy industry favorite for a couple years. It feels like because the catching pool has thickened up dramatically over the last few years. And Stephenson has not quite lived up to the hype that he might be even a little bit underrated at this point. Where are you at on Tyler Stephenson?
Well, I think he's exactly who he thought he was. He just got hurt multiple times last year. I think he had a couple of concussions, and then he got his shoulder, and he was done for the year before it was even half over. So I think, he doesn't have a long track record in the majors, but I think he's who we thought he was. It's just, can they keep him healthy enough to give you, a year's worth of stats? Because as you know, catchers don't play, 7 days a week. They only give you like 4 or 5 days at most. And if they're hurt as well, then, you're not really getting what you want from one of the slots. So, I agree with you. There's a lot more newer and sexy names that are probably getting pushed up, and that pushes him down a little bit, might make him a little more attractive if you're doing a snake draft. But, it's the injury thing, and it's a worry because last year was rough that way.
Yeah, I still love Tyler Stephenson. I'm not ready to give up on him. I think last year you can kind of write off, like you said, just some bad injury luck. And what I like about Stephenson is I think the bat is so good compared to speaking to a lot of the guys in the lineup that we're going to talk about for the Reds, is that there's a reasonable expectation that he can pick up more plate appearances at DH. And there's not a ton of catchers that you could say that about in Major League Baseball. Maybe Will Smith, maybe a guy like Sean Murphy. I don't even know with Travis d'Arnaud if that's even a realistic possibility. William Contreras maybe for the Brewers. Guys like that. Obviously, like JT Realmuto is another really good example. But Stephenson, I think his bat is so good when he is healthy that the Reds will give him an opportunity to pick up more plate appearances via the DH. And I think that just adds his potential value. So I like Stephenson a lot. Their backup is Curt Casali. Do we care?
You care if you're doing a NFBC Draft Champions League, I guess, and you have 50 picks. Other than that, I wouldn't care. I mean, but here's the thing: if Stephenson's hurt like he was last year, you got a half a year of probably Curt Casali. I mean, I don't see the Reds going out and trying to upgrade catcher or something. So that's what could happen.
Yeah, I think in really deep leagues, if Stephenson does go down again, then Casali becomes a real interesting guy. He showed a little bit of pop at times in San Francisco, but I don't know how interesting, especially with how deep the catching pool is this year. So
I mean, he's 34. He's one of those guys that Jeff Zimmerman would say might hurt you more if he plays more. So you got to watch out for that, I guess.
This is true. Joey Votto is kind of an enigma to me at this point. He had some down years and he had a couple big up years, and last year was an injury-riddled down year. I finished my first baseman projections last night, and I had a really hard time pegging what I thought Joey Votto might be this year, especially because there are some concerns. I was reading an article on Baseball Trade Rumors that he may not be ready for opening day. So where are you at on Joey Votto for fantasy?
Well, he just came out, I want to say a day or two ago, and said that he's not where he wants to be from his injury. And so there is concern that he won't be ready to go opening day, or he won't be ready to go for spring training anyway, and he'll be behind. And he's going to do what he needs to do to be ready. He's not one of those guys who plays at, 60% and just kind of piffles along. He wants to be good. And, he also is kind of a slow starter typically, and then he goes nuts once it gets into May, typically too. But he's 39 years old. I mean, he's not a young player anymore, and I think he realizes that too. It was interesting when you were talking about Tyler Stephenson getting some DH time. He may also get some first base time to spell Votto. We'll talk about Will Myers later. I think he may get some time at first to spell Votto. It just means Votto won't have quite the number of plate appearances he's used to having between the injury problem, but also trying to get him time off and having, viable alternatives who can play first base. So, he's not going to be the superstar 380 on base guy he used to be, compiling great, runs, RBIs, some home runs guy that but he will play. I mean, he'll be their starter, for the most part. And so that's one of those things where it's like, okay, I need to compile stats some way, somehow. And if I'm looking at the bottom of the pool and it's like I'm getting him or a scrub, got to get a guy who's going to play, right? So that's how I kind of look at him. I think he's probably, he'll probably be between 10 and 15 home runs. I'm thinking he'll probably be like 50 or 60 runs in RBIs. I'm thinking, 260 at best, maybe worse batting average. I mean, I don't know what that's worth. Not that much. I mean, he's just like a guy at this point, which is crazy because of course I have some bias in this, but I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer, because of his career. If he puts together like 8 seasons or something crazy of, 10 home runs, 50 RBIs, nobody's going to remember how great he was.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So let's talk about Jonathan India, another guy who had kind of a disappointing season, largely because he struggled to stay on the field. There's a contingent of fantasy analysts that are really, really excited for India. And then I think there's a contingent that have kind of buried him. And it's pretty reflective in kind of a mediocre ADP. Where are you at on Jonathan India?
I kind of like him. I think so here's a guy that I think if he can stay healthy, he'll be a compiler because he'll play every day no matter what. He can steal some bases. He probably can get you double-digit steals or right around that, 10, 12, something like that. He'll probably hit 15 home runs. I mean, that doesn't sound like a lot. It's not like he's some superstar, but I mean, those things add up. If you can, build a team of 15 home runs, 10 steals and get, a guy who's going to play every day, get you 70, runs, 60 RBIs, something like that. I'll bet, I think he's going lower than he should. But I think it's because of the recency bias to his injuries last year. But, there's no reason to think he'll be injured. He's not 39. He's pretty young. And he'll play. So I kind of like him at what he's going at in NFBC anyway.
I absolutely do too. He's going kind of this weird cluster of kind of upstart guys and injury veterans. Brandon Lau, injury veteran. Tyro Estrada, upstart guy. Vaughn Grisham, upstart guy. Whit Merrifield, like down year. Jake Cronenworth down year. I'll take him over all those guys. Like I think he. All reports are that he's healthy right now, and that he's working really hard in the off season. Looks good. We're a season removed from him being really, really good. And why can't he be like a 18-10 guy, 17-10 guy with a decent batting average and batting near the top of that Reds lineup where he will still score a good amount of runs. I mean, he is not like overly sexy, but I agree. I really like where he's going this year.
Yeah. I don't know if I would take him over Vaughn Grissom, but the rest of that list I would.
I think that is my debate usually when I get there. Until I know about Lau's back issue, I'm staying away. And I think for me, it's like, okay, Grisham and India kind of represent the two guys in that tier that I'm most excited to kind of pull the trigger on.
Yeah.
Moving over to shortstop, we have Kevin Newman, who was acquired via trade from Pittsburgh. I don't know if it was because it was like the first trade of the offseason, but people got really, really excited talking about Kevin Newman when that happened. I look at Kevin Newman kind of like he's just another guy, and this is disappointing as a fan of baseball because I want to see like the things that they've got in the minor leagues come up and not have Kevin Newman play shortstop. Where are you at on Kevin Newman?
Well, they're not ready. Those guys in the minors aren't ready to just come in and, play. Most of them are, well below like AA barely or not even in single A. So I don't see them coming up this year unless something crazy happens. I think Kevin Newman is just there. I think the Reds are hoping that he's Kyle Farmer, all over again. He probably won't have the same personality that the Reds fans seem to like of Kyle Farmer, and they're sad to see him go for God knows why. But I don't, Newman's going to be the same kind of guy. He's going to hit, 5 home runs, steal like 5 bases and play all the time. I mean, it's gross. I mean, I don't really know what to tell you. I don't think I would try to get him. If I got him, it'd just be because he's going to have a lot of plate appearances, but that's not what you're looking for. That's for sure. Especially with shortstops. There's plenty of good shortstops. I mean, the Reds don't have one. I mean, they have them, but they're in AA or single A.
Yeah, I completely agree. He's going pick 476 right now in an NFBC Draft Champions since December 1st. That like even feels too high for me. Like it's such a boring profile. I know he's going to play a lot, and I guess at the at that point in the draft, you're just looking for plate appearances.
Yeah, I mean, think about like Colorado has Iglesias, Jose Iglesias. It's like not good, but he's playing in Colorado. It's the same kind of thing. I mean, that's what you got to get, then that's what you got to get. But you're not looking to get. That's not the strategy.
Yeah, it's absolutely not the strategy. So don't get excited by Kevin Newman. Spencer Steer looks like the opening day third baseman. What are your thoughts on Steer? I don't know a ton about him. I don't even remember him last year.
Well, if you read local Reds, writers and podcasts and whatnot, they love this guy. I think he's gonna bomb. I don't think he's that good. I think he's kind of over his head. I don't think he's a major leaguer. He's like a quad A player. He'll probably struggle to hit 200 in my view. I'm not excited about him at all. I would be very shocked if he got to play third base all year and made it work. I'm just not on him at all. And of course, if I so chose, I could fight with Reds fans and people all day long on Twitter about it because they all like him. But they traded for him, so of course he must be good, right? I mean.
Of course, the confirmation bias sounds strong in Cincinnati.
It is. People are grasping for anything. So yes.
Yeah. Just looking at his profile, like I said, I honestly, I've not watched a ton of tape on him, but just looking at his numbers when I was doing his projections last night, I was like, I didn't think I agreed. I felt like Steamer was way too high after I finished mine, and two, I was like, I just don't expect him to be very fantasy worthy. Any chance we see any of the young guys that, Elly De La Cruz, Jose Barrero, Noelvi Marte. Having trouble with that name. Any chance we see them for extended looks this year?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that, well, let me start with Barrero. I think Barrero is major leagues for good. I don't think they're going to send him down unless he just completely honks again. And I think he's probably a better defensive shortstop than Newman. But he just hasn't been able to hit a lick in the majors, and he's had a few tries now. I think they'll probably stick him on the bench, and have him, and so he'll be around. I just don't know how much playing time he's going to get. He would have to hit in spring training or earn his way onto the team when he gets a chance, every once in a while. I just don't see that happening easily. It's not impossible, and I don't think he's necessarily worse than Newman. I mean, like I said, he's better defensively at least. I don't know. But Marte and De La Cruz, I mean, I think they're going to have those guys in the minors all year. I think Reds fans are hoping and thinking that they'll be up at the All-Star break or something like that, but they're not ready. I mean, they're not, they could come. A guy like De La Cruz, I don't think it's hyperbole to say he could be Fernando Tatis Jr., and he's got a similar profile, but he strikes out like 30% of the, time. I mean, he's got to fix that. He's got to figure that out. And, it hasn't mattered in the minors, but it will matter in the majors. And so until he fixes some of that, they're not going to bring him up, and they don't want to start his clock anyway there because the team's not ready. And Marte, he had a heck of a time in the fall league, and they didn't send so as it kind of tells you a little bit what they think about these guys. So De La Cruz, he's out there playing for Licey in the Dominican. That's a big time thing for a guy as young as he is. He's only like 20. Marte, on the other hand, went to the fall league, and then he struggled in the fall league. So I think they're going to take it slower with him. And so I don't think we'll see either of those guys. Unless just, if Elly De La Cruz, hits like 30 home runs in April, and maybe you'll see him in July. I mean, but I just don't think that's not what the Reds are planning anyway.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Let's move into the outfield. Let's start with one of their newer acquisitions, Wil Myers. Some people, including my co-host Paul Spohr, very, very excited on Wil Myers and his projection. I'm actually pretty excited myself. How excited are you about Wil Myers coming to town?
Well, it's interesting and odd. Like, why Wil Myers? I don't know. I guess because he was willing to take whatever the Reds' paltry, pay they would make. But Wil Myers is a good profile for the ballpark. The ballpark is a pretty homerific, place, and he's been out in San Diego for a while. He's in Tampa. I mean, those are not homerific places. So it's I'm kind of excited about that. I think he probably leads the team in home runs, which when Wil Myers lead your team in home runs, it isn't like you're going to win the division or something. But he can play some first base. So I mentioned, he probably will spell Votto some. I think he'll play out in left field for better or worse. He'll be better than Adam Dunn was, if you remember him. He's like the worst left fielder I think I've ever seen in my life. Although some say Manny Ramirez, it's hard to say. But, Wil Myers is better than that. He's probably better than Jesse Winker, who we had recently out in the outfield. So I don't think Reds fans will even mind that because he'll be the guy who's leading the team probably at home runs, even though he's Wil Myers.
Yeah, I think there is a reasonable chance he could lead the team in home runs, and that does say more about the state of the Reds offense than it does about Wil Myers. That being said, I love Wil Myers to Cincinnati. That is a fantastic park to hit home runs in. I think he's going to hit a bunch of them. I think I pegged him for 24, 25 home runs, my projections last night. Yeah, I mean, he's going to go up because this in ADP is seeing where he lands, but I don't think he's going to go off the charts or anything like that. But he will definitely be a target of mine kind of later in the draft. Moving over to TJ Friedl, who was one of my big sleeper guys last year. I feel like he kind of came through fairly well, and now he's being ignored again. What are your thoughts on TJ Friedl?
So he's kind of an overachiever too. I think he won't have a good batting average, but I do think he has the ability to steal some bases. He has a little pop. He can probably go 15-15 if he played every day. I don't know that he'll play every day, but if he did, he could go 15-15. Among the options they have, he's one of the better players. So, it's very possible that he could find his way getting in, 400, play appearances. I mean, it's not inconceivable. So, I kind of like him where he is on the ADP, but I mean, let me tell you, his batting average is going to stink. I mean, there's no way around it. So you got to watch out for that part of it, or account for it anyway.
I mean, I don't know that it's going to stink too bad, but I think you can. He hit 240. His XBA was 215, so that does tell you that there's some pretty big risk. He hit 267 in the second half. He had almost a 90% zone contact rate. He had under 27% O swing last year. Like, there's some good parts to this contact profile. There's power, there's speed, and he leads off. I think his main concern is that he platoons, and if that's good, you obviously have to kind of cap those plate appearances. We're talking about a guy who's still going pretty late in drafts. I like TJ Friedl a lot. He's still my dude. On the other corner, we've got Nick Senzel, who was everybody's dude for a minute, but dude just can't stay healthy. Is this the year that Nick Senzel finally stays healthy now that nobody's really paying attention to him anymore?
Well, if he does, I hope somebody gets the benefit of it, because I don't think you should pay for him like he's going to stay healthy, because he hasn't. I mean, and it's been years. He probably would have been better off staying in the infield when they drafted him. But they needed a center fielder and they didn't have one. So there he went, and he's been hurt ever since. I just think, you have to treat him like a half a season guy. And, he hasn't hit very well for like a year and a half now too. He hit pretty well before that. Last year and a half, he hasn't hit very well. So I think they're kind of stuck with him playing center field when they can get him out there. But I think even the team is soured on him largely. And I don't think we're going to see the plate appearances, even when healthy, that you would expect from somebody who's a starter.
Yeah, that's a bummer. He is going extremely cheaply. And it's been very few plate appearances because he's been hurt. He still shows elite contact ability. And I think there is power and some speed in there. I want to believe in Nick Senzel. I like probably everybody else in Cincinnati. I think I need to see it first. I mean, the price is fine. It's around pick 500 in draft champions, which means in a regular league, you're not even drafting him. So if you want to use your last round pick on him, you can, because he is legitimately free. In draft champions, you're getting him so late that he's not really going to hurt you. And there is upside there. So it's still a great park to hit in. I think if he shows he's healthy and shows he can hit still, that he will earn those plate appearances. But there is a risk you get 300 plate appearances, and that's it.
Yep.
Last guy in the outfield, or last couple guys in the outfield, Stuart Fairchild, who is a kind of failed prospect that has got some pop and some speed and no ability to make contact. However, his girlfriend has a really, really good TikTok account where she anonymously asks him questions about baseball. So I can't remember her name, but go follow her on TikTok. And then Nick Solak, who was a buddy, or not a buddy of mine, but a guy I really had a lot of hopes and dreams for in Texas and Tampa before that, that may not even be in the major leagues. Any interest in either of these guys?
No, not really. I'll tell you this about Solak, though, is he can play some second and third and, and so on. And one of the things I think about with guys like Solak and also Matt Reynolds is that if Spencer Steer stinks, like I think he's probably going to, that those guys are going to pick up some at-bats at third. And if India gets hurt, then they'll pick up some bats at second. I mean, it's, these guys are around because of their versatility, not because they're great, they're great players in the absolute. From a major league standpoint, their value is that they can play second, third, outfield. And so they may find themselves getting way more at bats than the Reds would like, but that's because other people are hurt or terrible. So, and it's empty, they're not giving you that much.
All right, let's move into a little bit more interesting part of this team, which is the starting rotation. We'll start with Hunter Greene.
You skipped Jake Fraley.
Oh, I skipped Jake Fraley. I apologize, Mr. Fraley. Jake Fraley is an interesting part of that outfield. Missed some time due to health last year. Could be a platoon guy, but there's power in their speed. If he can get 450, 500 plate appearances, I think he could be real interesting for fantasy. Where are you at on Jake Fraley?
I like him. I like him a lot. Otherwise, I'd have been like, fine, let's talk about pitching. He's another bad hitter. But no, I think he's actually was pretty good last year when he played. I think he's a guy who could have 15-15 kind of season. And I think he will play because I think they kind of don't have a lot of lefties. TJ Friedl is a lefty as well. But between it's those two plus Votto, and that's all kind of all your lefties. So, he's going to have to get in the lineup when they're facing right-handed hitting. That's kind of what you want. And so I like him. I think where he's going, he's a value. And he might be, to me, one of the best values that you can get off the Reds. Not like you're burning the house down to try to get a Red, but if you were, he'd be the guy.
I completely agree with you. He was the guy I drafted in my main event. Unfortunately, injuries meant I had to drop him before he actually played well. But I like Fraley's kind of potential to be, like you said, like a 15-15 guy if he's getting enough plate appearances and is on the field. So, all right, let's move now to Hunter Greene in the rotation. This is a guy with just unbelievable upside, right? Like if there is a this year's Shane McClanahan, Hunter Greene definitely could fit the bill on that. There's amazing strikeouts. His walk rate isn't egregious. A lot of prospect pedigree. I am very cautious about Hunter Greene, especially with a home run rate in that park. Where are you at on Hunter Greene for fantasy?
Yeah, I'm glad you said for fantasy because in real baseball, that's the guy that I go down to the ballpark to watch. He's the only guy on the team that I go down to the ballpark to watch because he's ridiculous. And when he throws the ball, you're like, holy crap, it's amazing. But he had some inconsistency issues last year, and he had a little bit of injuries. But he's his second half was absurd, and I think he's got he's growing. He's just a baby. He's still growing. But he's got an arsenal that when he's on, he's good bet to throw no hitter, one hitter, two hitter. He can do that multiple times. I mean, it's kind of that weird Nolan Ryan kind of thing. And who has that? Nobody has that. So I'm high on him, but he's going really high. So. I don't know if I would get him where he's going, but man, I would love to have him on my team because I love to watch him and care about him and see how he's doing.
Yeah, he's currently going to pick 118 on NFCC Draft Champions since December 1st, going ahead of last year's breakout Kyle Wright, ahead of Blake Snell, ahead of Clayton Kershaw, ahead of Lance Lynn. And to me, that's just too much helium. Now, he could absolutely outperform that ADP. Like I said, he could be this year's Shane McClanahan, where he just jumps up from that outside of the top 100 price to being an SP1. I can't pay for that, though.
I don't disagree with that. In fact, I think that what it is if you're in a draft with 15 guys, there's a guy in there, he's like, that's the guy. One guy's like, I gotta get that guy. I'm not that guy saying that, but I love him. And when I watch him pitch, I'd rather watch him pitch than anyone else. I can't think of a pitcher I'd rather watch. And it's not just because I'm a Reds fan. He just has this crazy, unique arsenal that's fun to watch. And when he's on, which he could be any day that you watch him, he could be off too. And then it's like walk, ball, foul, whatever. But when he's on, it's electric. It's something to watch.
I completely agree with you. I mean, I think he's a really fun player to watch. And I think in your really shallow leagues, your 8-10 team leagues, take the gamble, right? Because if it doesn't work out, you can always drop him for somebody else. But ultimately, you're shooting for upside in those kind of formats. Anything deeper than that, though, I'm just very cautious in terms of paying the price, especially because you only get 4 categories from starting pitchers in fantasy. In being on the Reds, unfortunately, you're sacrificing the wins category already. Which no.
Not if he's pitching 8 innings because he's struck out like 20 guys or something.
Yeah, exactly. Right. He's gonna pitch so well that they give the team negative runs, so that way the Reds can win 0 to -1. Yeah, and so I do worry about in that park that home run rate becoming a real issue. And it's one of my other issues with the next guy on the list, who is another guy I actually really love watching pitch, and I think is going to be really, really good at some point in Nick Lodolo. Do you have the same kind of fears on Nick Lodolo for fantasy, or are you on board? Because he's going right around the same spot as Hunter Greene, pick 125 in draft champions. Right?
It's too high. I mean, it's just too high. I mean, I like Lodolo. I don't like watching him pitch like I like watching Hunter Greene pitch, but they're different. I mean, he's super efficient and he knows what he's doing and he knows how to throw it not over the plate, but like on the edges of the plate. You know, he knows how to induce strikes. He's a good pitcher. He knows what he's doing, and that's exciting. The two of them are exciting together. I think they're going to be very good. But I don't know that they're that, they're not quite like, good Lord, 120, 100. Like, no, that's too high for me. But I like them both a lot.
Yeah. I actually like Lodolo for fantasy more than I like Greene.
He's more reliable.
Yeah. I just think the downside is a bit higher. The floor is a bit higher than Greene's. And I was really impressed with him during kind of his hot stretch last year. Like, just there was one point where I was like, oh my God, I think he's a top 20 pitcher from baseball. And then
he's going where he's going.
Yeah, and that's exactly why he's going where he's going. But I just don't think I can pay the price over the other guys going. I mean, the guy going like right after him is Lance Lynn, who I think is criminally underrated because of his age. And it's like, if I get to that point, I'm gonna take Lance Lynn over Lodolo over Hunter Greene probably 99 times out of 100. And I don't plan on having 100 drafts this year, so close to it, but not quite 100. Anybody else in this rotation that makes sense to you for fantasy? There's some names. You got Luis Cessa, Graham Ashcraft, Justin Dunn, maybe even Brandon Williamson at some point. Or is there anybody in the minor leagues that might come up?
No, I don't even know what they're going to do. Like, to me, they have those two guys, and then they have Graham Ashcraft, who they're going to use. Mm-hmm. He throws 97, but he's hittable. So unless he comes up with another pitch or does something different than he did last year, I don't think he's going to be all that good. I think, but where he's going in draft champions is like, throw a flyer at a guy who throws 97 and hope for the best, because he's going to pitch. And if he stinks, well, you just keep him on inactive. But, those other guys, there's nobody there. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do. They're going to have to sign some scrubby guy for a year here at the, like at the beginning of March, at the end of February, when somebody can't find a team. They're going to have to like sign somebody. It'll be somebody that's so awful that you don't want to use them. I mean, they just don't have anybody. It's frightening. Yeah.
Brandon Bailey's still working his way back from Tommy John. I'll be able to see what he looks like in spring training. This should be his kind of first full year back. Brandon Williamson's a guy that I liked in Seattle in the minor leagues, but I don't know if that part's going to do him very many favors.
Yeah, he's been bad since the trade.
I know.
He did not play well last year at all. So
Graham Ashcraft is a guy that I would be interested in if he got another pitch, like you mentioned. He had a 55% ground ball rate last year at home, which is what you want to see from a guy pitching in Great America Ballpark. He does hit 97 with that fastball. But like I said, he needs a third pitch in order to not be so predictable. So
he doesn't induce any strikeouts. It's crazy to throw as hard as he throws and not get any strikeouts. But
so he's one of those guys, like there are a number of people in the industry, including my co-host, Jason Collette, who talk about new pitches during spring training a lot. So kind of keep an eye out if you see the name Graham Ashcraft. Oh, okay. We got a new pitch. Is he using it a lot in spring? If that's the case, then maybe he becomes more interesting. And again, in a really, really, really deep league, draft champions, or more likely than not, off the waiver wire when somebody on your team gets hurt. So
yeah, I think you're going to see a bunch of like guys get like 4 starts for those other slots though, and it's going to be ugly.
Yeah. One of the bright spots on this Reds team is Alexis Diaz. He was absolutely electric last year. I'm a big fan. I am also always concerned that the Reds are going to work their way into some sort of rotation or committee in the bullpen. So you're the bullpen guy for Baseball HQ. You're also the Reds guy. Please tell me that my early Alexis Diaz shares are not going to screw me.
Well, I think that the Reds are planning on using him as the closer. And I think that's the plan. The thing about it is how consistent will he be early? I think guys like Alexis Diaz have a not probability, but possibility of just kind of not having his mechanics all together when the season starts and have a few bad outings. And then suddenly you see some other guy, heaven forbid it's somebody as terrible as Hunter Strickland last year. Good Lord. But that's how the Reds roll. I mean, they're like, oh, well, Alexis Diaz has had 2 bad games in a row. We're going to throw Hunter Strickland in there or something. I mean, that's what they do. So that's possible. I'm not going to tell you it's not possible. That's happened like for 3 years in a row. But Diaz is clearly the best skill set on the team in the bullpen. I think that he would have a challenge if TJ Antone or Lucas Sims. Either one of them could prove that they were healthy in spring training, because I think their skill sets are just as good as Diaz, if not better. I'd say about the same. But those guys haven't been healthy at all. And Diaz has, and Diaz played really well last year. So I don't think it's a bad bet, especially where he's going, as a closer. The only thing that's bad about it, of course, again, is what kind of wins is he going to preserve in Cincinnati? They're not going to have that many wins. So you're not, it's not like he has an abundance of times he's going to go out there, with a clean 9th inning and a nice lead, to bring home the save. So that's a downside to it. I don't hate him at his price, but I do think you have to be aware of all those possibilities. And if he's slow starting, then David Bell's not afraid to say, okay, who do we got? Let's throw the guy who hasn't pitched yet in the majors in there and see if he can get a save. He'll do it. He's not afraid to do it.
Yeah, and that's my big fear. That being said, his price is really, really good. He's going to pick 132. He's going after Duran, going after Daniel Bard, going after Scott Barlow and Clay Holmes. Some of those guys are pretty good, but I actually wouldn't mind if I am waiting on saves a little bit in an NFBC league or a regular league, is pairing him with a Scott Barlow or pairing him with a Clay Holmes kind of guy, and going, hey, I've got potential of 2 really good closers right here, or at least just 1 really good closer. But I think Diaz, is good enough to keep that job. I just do worry about David Bell and that Reds organization in terms of managing bullpens.
And it's really the whole idea is, can he get his mechanics together fast enough? Because if he's stinking in spring training, nobody cares that much. But if it lingers all the way into April, then suddenly it's like, okay, now we're not sure if we can rely on him. So, the minute he loses the role, then he'll reel off 15 perfect innings, but it's too late. He's now part of a platoon.
Yeah. Well, Doug, thank you so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate you coming and dropping the bullpen knowledge, the Reds knowledge on me. I remind everybody where you can reach on social media, and then plug your work again.
Yeah. So at Doug Dennis 41 on Twitter. And I'm at Baseball HQ, easily found on the web, and I write the bullpen column for that site.
And you can reach me on Twitter at Justin Mason, FWFB. Email me or the show, friendsoffantasybenefits@gmail.com. Get those 5-star reviews in for your chance to win a free T-shirt from Rotorwear. You can also read all my written work over on Fangraphs from writing 5 days a week. And hear me on Super on the Bus podcast. This podcast, we're doing the 30 team previews in 30 days, and the TGFBI podcast. For Doug and myself, thank you for listening. Have fantastic baseball off season.